Welcome back to our Hard Talk series. My name is Marek Kowalski. I'm the campus pastor at Renew Milton. And this morning we're going to have a hard talk that I think a lot of us lately have either had recently or have needed to have or wanted to have. This is a hard talk that is something that's relatively new to us. We don't have any direction, clear direction straight from the Bible. It's not something that previous generations have had to deal with. So this is got very little precedent for us to work from. And the hard talk we're going to have this morning, it usually starts with something like, are you listening to me? Or, is that work again? Who are you texting? Or just straight out, could you please put the phone down? Right? This is the new norm. Digital distraction is everywhere. It's affecting our kids. It's affecting us as adults, as parents. It's affecting us at work, at home, at school. It's everywhere. It's such a huge problem, and we all know it because you just look around and you can see the evidence for it. We've got new driving laws, distracted driving laws to combat all the smartphone-related accidents. We've got employers who are trying to figure out how to deal with social media and its impact on productivity. We have new names for disorders like IUD, Internet Use Disorder, and IAD, Internet Addiction Disorder. This stuff is becoming addictive even. And after years of trying to ban mobile devices at schools, teachers are now realizing that we need to fold that into the curriculum and into the learning. The issue is just so pervasive, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time really talking about the problem. So what I want to do is get right to the heart of the solution. And so to do this, we've done a little study and we've come to a book called The TechWise Family. It's written by Andy Crouch. He's an editor and a publisher for Christianity Today. And he's been on this journey with his family for quite some time, and he's got a lot of great insight to share. And so we're going to pull some of his thinking out and talk to a few people. So to kick things off, I want you to watch this short video from Andy Crouch himself.
Imagine a home. Now, what do you imagine in the home? A family? Furniture? Here's what you probably didn't imagine: technology. The filling of our homes with electronic devices has come about overnight, in the blink of an eye in terms of human history. And all that change has brought with it some growing pains, especially for parents. More than 3 in 4 parents say that raising kids today is more complicated than it was when they were kids. Why do they think it's more complicated? Technology tops the list. And many parents are worried about their own technology usage. Are they modeling good habits in this area to their watching kids? When previous generations faced parenting challenges, they could fall back on wisdom passed down to them. What did mom and dad do? But when it comes to technology, the rate of change has far surpassed our ability to develop wisdom around it. It's not that technology is bad. None of us want to just get rid of our devices altogether. It's more that we need to figure out the proper place for our technology, inside our homes and in our lives. Doing so can help us go from a technology-troubled family to a tech-wise family. And here's the thing, even though the technology is new, the impulses and addictions that drive us to use it badly are age-old. Boredom, distraction, laziness, ambition, lust, greed, jealousy. The TechWise family recognizes that to fight these old vices requires old virtues: character, courage, wisdom. The TechWise family isn't obsessed simply with rules about technology use or with eliminating devices. A TechWise family is obsessed with cultivating character, with curiosity and creativity and play, with good conversations and healthy rhythms of work and rest. A TechWise family knows that if you get that stuff right, the technology is much more likely to fall in its proper place, creating a home where kids and parents, and technology, can live together in harmony.
What really makes it hard is we're the first ones to have to deal with it. We can't go to the wisdom of previous generations. There is no inherited cultural tradition. Even in the most expansive definition of technology, we're only 200 years into this story out of thousands and thousands of years of the human race. In many ways, we're 20 years into the real effect of technology kind of in all of its ramifications. And so we are all just figuring this out as we go along. And of course, young people, children, youth, young adults are really facile with this. They figure it out very quickly. Adults often just aren't motivated to figure it out, or sometimes a little slower. And so you also have this kind of turning upside down of expertise, where parents used to be the experts on the world. They knew how to operate in the world, and they could teach their children that. They're better technically, but they actually, just like all the generations, are absolutely adrift in how we actually manage this in a way that's healthy. None of us know how to do this. We all need help. And so actually, I think this is not just a parenting problem or a family problem, it's a human problem. And the kids, by the way, when we ask kids, what do you wish was, or most wish was different in your relationship with your parents? Their number one answer is, I wish my parents would get off their screens and talk to me.
Share a little bit of some of the things in the book that you've done to help guide parents. Because what I felt when I was reading it was, this is really more about spiritual direction,
Yes.
more than it is, here's tips and tricks for keeping your kids safe from the internet.
Yeah, our power, I think, actually, and our role as parents is to set deep commitments in place in our family that actually show our kids what we believe real life is about. And so the book starts with that. You know, the deepest thing family should be for is the formation of persons of wisdom and courage. I actually think the greatest threat technology offers to our family is that it promises to make life easy, when actually life in the family, in a way, is meant to be hard. So the very foundation of the book is not how do we handle this or that app or even this or that device. It's how do we make our family a place where everybody knows what we're about is pursuing wisdom and courage together. In the book, I talk about two things that are just never going to change for human beings, and that's space and time. So time goes all the way back to the commandment of Sabbath. God's people were commanded to actually have this rhythm of work and rest. Now, our new devices say, oh, you don't have to rest anymore. You can work anytime, anywhere. But if you have a Sabbath mindset, you realize that's very dangerous spiritually. And it does not seem that it's what God made us for. God made us for a rhythm of work and rest. So we actually, in our family, have structured time. 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, and 1 to 2 weeks a year, we basically turn everything off. So the other thing we've done is we've realized we're human beings. You know, what's the oldest truth about human beings? We're created in bodies. We're made out of the dust. We're made of physical stuff. And something about that is essential to our human nature. We're not just brains. We're not just minds. We're not even just souls or spirits. We're actually in a body. And so bodies move through space. And the way you shape the space of your home really matters. So what what my wife and I decided to do when the kids were very small, we said we're going to put all the sort of glowing things, all the glowing rectangles, at the very edges of our house. They are not going to be at the center of our house. And if you come to our home and walk in our first floor to the kind of heart of the home where we spend most of our time as a family, there's almost nothing technological visible, and that's totally intentional. The TV is way downstairs, it's in the basement. We can go there if we want to watch something, but it's not at the heart of the house. The various screens are kept at the edge, and instead we've filled the center of the home, the space where we spend the most time, with things that actually require embodied engagement. One of the really scary things we found out in the research is the great majority of teenagers, and we all know this, take their phones to bed with them. The problem is you need to be a healthy human embodied creature. You need, especially in your teen years, 8 to 9 hours of total rest. So, you know, one of the things we say, I say in the book is a rule our house has is our devices go to bed before we do, and we wake up before they do. So rather than going to bed with it and then waking up, rolling over, you know, swipe to see what's new, we put our devices to bed on this little docking station in the kitchen, and we all go to our bedrooms, and we have this beautiful, blissful time where we're not acting like a device. The device can keep gathering email. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to rest from that. And you need to help your kids have that discipline, I think.
In that video, you heard Andy Crouch describe this as a human problem. And that's because technology challenges what real life is about, is what he said. So if we're going to address the problem, then we're going to have to ask a few important questions. First of all, what is it about humanity that makes this a problem? And what does he mean when he says this is what real life is about? If technology is a distraction, then we have to ask, well, what should be our focus? And what exactly is it distracting from? You know, these are the sort of things we're going to have to dig through. A man once asked Jesus some very similar questions, or one in particular. He said, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment of the law?" In other words, what's really worthy of our focus and our attention? What is life really about, like we're asking right now? What does God want us most to concentrate on? Well, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. There are a few important conclusions that we can draw from the answers that Jesus gave. God's primary call in our lives is to invite us into the deepest commitment we can make, and that is to love. That the commandments are all rooted on love. Secondly, he gave us this two-pronged focus that we're to direct that love to. First, it should be directed to him, but then also to others. And finally, these priorities that he's giving us should be holistic and all-encompassing. They're supposed to involve our minds, our bodies, our spirits, all together, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual aspects of who we are. This all suggests to me that even the smallest distraction can be detrimental to the plan and purpose God has for our lives. So I think that right there is the human problem we're all facing. So now with all that in mind, what do we make of technology that offers such a strong distraction and temptation that kind of pulls at every part of our lives? In the video, Andy described that it affects our time and our space. I would take that further. I would say it appeals to our hearts, our minds, and our spirits. It conditions our thoughts. It transforms our appetites. It affects how we relate to each other. So just to illustrate this and to explain it a little further, I want you to consider a couple of primary ways that the activities and the patterns of our lives either focus our attention on God or distract us completely from him and how we relate to each other as people. So these two things are relationships and rhythms. Okay, so let's look at relationships just to start. At the root of those two greatest commandments, you see the fundamental invitation to relationship, to love God and to love people. Now, to be fair, we have to acknowledge that technology is a very useful tool in relationships as well. I mean, it connects us to other people. It allows us this unique opportunity to see into other people's lives and what's going on with them. And it's obviously a powerful tool for communication. But on the other hand, I think we shouldn't fool ourselves and recognize that technology can only do so much in a relationship. The goal of technology is to make things easy, but relationships are hard and they're messy. Sometimes what technology provides may only be the illusion of relationship because it only enables us to connect on a certain level. You know, while we might be able to interact with numerous people in real time, those interactions can be superficial, like a quick text and a few emoticons, or it might be completely artificial, like a highly staged Instagram photo that we're trying to convey some kind of image with. Did you know that the phrase one another appears about 100 times in the New Testament? Now, most of these one another's actually are talking about that hard, messy stuff of relationships. A third of them deal with unity, with people in the church and in the church family getting along with each other. Another third speak to love, to actually loving one another. And then many of the rest focus on things like humility, submission to each other, and service. Now, the one another's that technology gives us are obviously very different. There's no call in the Bible to friend one another, to follow one another, to retweet one another. These things aren't there. It's calling us to something much deeper than I think we get out of a lot of our interactions with technology. So now the second thing I wanted you to think about was rhythms. If God calls us to focus all of our attention and all of our energy on relationships with him and others, then obviously we're going to need to structure our time and our energy to accomplish these things. And that can sound pretty demanding. In fact, it sounds downright exhausting. But God, in all his wisdom and in all his creativity, designed a rhythm of life that allows us to accomplish this thing. He gives us real rest. He gives us ways to re-energize and to re-engage ourselves to move towards those relationships. Actually, he commands this. Exodus 31:13 says, "Above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I, the Lord, sanctify you." So do you see how important that is? Above all, keep the Sabbath. It's this primary sign that we belong to God and his good purposes. He wants our whole being, our mind, body, soul. And the Sabbath was meant to serve those things, to refresh us in every aspect of our being. Yet often in those times of quiet downtime or what we would call rest, we turn to technology instead as just a way to direct our attention. And so we don't focus on God, we don't focus on others, and we don't really refresh that wholeness of who we are. When we turn to technology, we're looking for something easy, something that's not going to ask too much from us. And when we choose that route, we often end up trading this very vital, life-giving Sabbath for something that just sells that short, for leisure, for entertainment. You know, this might provide some temporary rest for our bodies, maybe even our minds, as we kind of get to zone out for a little while, but it does not energize us towards relationship with God and relationship with others. You know, the TechWise book makes a couple of great observations on this level. Firstly, there's one piece that says, technology is often at the center of our search for undemanding distraction. I think that's very true. We're looking for something undemanding. But that devalues God's design for us because we choose ease instead of work. We choose consumption instead of creativity. We choose superficial connections instead of genuine relationships. So we're trading a lot away in that. Another great thing I thought the book said was that, it references in Scripture, everything God made, he deemed it very good. But technology can only be very good if it can make us who we were meant to be. So with that in mind, I think the most powerful thing that we can do to explore this concept of very goodness and how technology maybe can be good, but more so how we can live out this life we're called to, is to actually give this stuff a try. Find out what happens when we live out God's design for us, when we really engage mind, body, and soul in the rhythms of creativity and work and rest. So what we did is we spent some time with a couple of families at Renew to talk about this. One family has been exploring this for quite some time. It's been something that they've been drawn to and that they've wanted to figure out for their family, and they've spent a couple of years thinking this through and trying new things. And another family is a family who are trying this for the very first time. We asked them to participate in this little experiment with us to see how that might go. So I want you to check out their stories and really listen to the insights that they have to share. So watch this video and check it out. Welcome back to Hard Talks. My name is Marek Kowalski, and I'm the campus pastor at Renew Milton. And we're talking about digital distraction today. So I've invited Gerald and Julia Tarsisius to join us. They're from our Milton campus, and Gerald actually shared with us the book TechWise Family that we've been talking about this morning. And since then, they've been living out and exploring and experimenting with some of these practices. So we thought they would be the perfect people to give us some perspective on what this looks like and how it feels. So I want to start by talking about the approach that Andy Crouch takes in the book is to look at the biblical narrative and the way that God has designed us to be images of Him who is a creator. And He gives us these rhythms of work and rest, and that's how we are designed to live. And as Andy Crouch kind of puts it, he suggests that technology attacks these healthy rhythms of work and rest because it gives us this easy everywhere paradigm in which it's always accessible, always available, and it's designed to be easy to use and to make life easy. And of course, that's not the way life pans out. So his suggestion is that this interruption of technology interrupts those healthy rhythms that we're supposed to live in, making it very difficult to live in the way God designed us. So I wanted to ask Gerald and Julia, has that been your experience? Do you kind of resonate with this approach that he takes in the book, and how has that looked in your life prior to now?
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think for us, technology, I work with technology a lot, so I am constantly immersed in that world. And I find that when I come home from that, I have to take a break from it because it's sort of very pervasive in my life. It's something that is just constantly there. It's always present. I'm always having to think about things from a technology side of things. I'm always thinking, have I responded to that email? Have I, did I follow up with this person who wanted something, or whatever it might be? There was technology is sort of it seems to be almost this thing that we live our lives on, and you end up leaning on that a lot. You almost end up living your life around it, around the social media stuff, around. Even in our homes, you can, our laptops, we have more screens more screens than we do have people in our house. And I think that's something that we have to be very aware of because it can be quite stifling and quite controlling in some ways to have all that stuff around us. And it's something that we're still learning how to handle well and how to work through and work with as well.
So you mentioned taking Sabbaths. It sounds like a 24-hour period for you, which is one of the things Andy Crouch advocates. He says take 1 hour a day,
Yeah.
1 day a week, and one week a year where devices are off. He suggests other things like no devices in the car, that should be conversation time. We should shut our devices off before we go to sleep, and they turn on after we've gotten up and done something with our day. So what other practices have you put into place in your family, and how does that go? What does that look like?
You want to answer some of that?
Sure. Yeah. We've done a few things. We don't have conversation. We have conversation in our car, mainly because the iPad makes people sick in the car. But it's created really great opportunities to connect as a family in the car. We do long road trips, and we look forward to them because we know we can talk with each other and with our kids and explore what's outside. We got rid of Netflix in January, and that was a big change for me. But it just made us be more intentional with what we were absorbing and what we were putting into our heads when we had downtime. One of the things he talked about in the book was about having more music in your home. I think so. And so at Christmas, I actually bought a piano and a cajon just for that express purpose of having space for creativity. I'm realizing my phone is like my everything. It's my camera, it's my light, it's my clock, it's my alarm, it's on and on and on. So I find it hard to put it aside because I'm always needing it for something. But I do consciously try to put it aside because our 2-year-old will steal it from me all day if I don't. Because I have a very addictive personality, and so does other people in our family, so do other people. So we've had to just be really careful with screens and preventing that.
Well, even just with the music part, it's been fun because there have been probably on average about once a week, Julie and I will get together and we'll just play music in our living room, and the kids will hang out and they'll sometimes come and join us with their own tambourines and whatnot. But that's been fun. So she's very good at keyboard, and so she'll play the piano, and I'm just learning to play the cajon, and it's fun to just learn that and just have fun with it and have fun with the kids while they're in the midst of that as well.
So for me, about 3 years ago or so, I actually deleted my Facebook account. And that was one of the best things I ever did. I realized I was spending all my time thinking about Facebook and the pictures I could take to post, and that I wasn't actually spending time with Eli when he was a baby. And I was always comparing myself to others, and it was just all negative. And then I turned to Instagram and made myself somewhat addicted to that in place of Facebook. And then I actually took a sabbatical from that. So I put bans on myself. I go on sabbaticals from certain apps.
Looking at this and thinking about how do we do this, I'm going to guess a lot of people are thinking this sounds really hard, and you touched on that a bit too.
It's really hard.
In what aspects maybe did you find it hard, and do you have any advice of how did you get through it? Is there anything you'd say to somebody who's thinking about taking this on but is going, this just sounds way too much?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you just have to do this one at a time. In January, when we canceled Netflix, we've been talking about canceling Netflix for about 6 months. And we just never wanted to pull the trigger on it. And so one day I kind of got fed up, and I was at work, and I just decided I'm going to cancel Netflix. So I canceled it, and about 5 minutes later, Julia called me up. So did you just cancel Netflix?
I got an email.
Yeah, she got an email, and
You did it.
It's great advice for husbands, I don't think.
Yeah. We had been talking about it, and it was really good because, I'm a binge watcher. I love to watch a whole series in one go, and I don't get anything done. And I look forward to putting my kids to bed so I can watch a show. So I think it's more like, where's your heart and what needs to go? I think everyone knows personally what their trigger is or what they need to kind of let go to spend time with God. I would much rather watch a show than open my Bible or pray or connect with people that I knew that had to go if I wanted to do those things that were better. We've had a lot better conversations in the evenings. We've actually connected. I think we'd go a week being like, let's just watch a show. And by the end of the week, we're like, how was your week? I haven't even seen you. And when you have young kids, it's hard to connect. So that getting rid of Netflix was huge in just our own relationship and having yeah, when so many marriages do struggle and not connecting, then I feel like TV and devices and being alone on their phone, I can't help that. I can't help. So it's helped us. Yeah, helped me especially. So.
And probably one thing too I would add is it might be tempting when trying to consider something like taking a sabbatical or a Sabbath rather every week, to make that a time where you're just turning everything off, including your family. And I think that's not the point. It's not an excuse to not do anything. There are still chores and things like that need to be done. I mean, if you can figure out a way to plan your week in such a way that some of those things could be done on Friday or Sunday or something, that's a good idea too. But I would just say, if you're married, make sure that your spouse is also on board with this. That was a conversation we had to have before I started, but also as we were going, because
I mean, don't just cancel Netflix on.
Yeah.
That one too. But yeah, but with Sabbath, we had to make sure that we were talking about that. We had to make sure that we knew what I was doing, and make sure that it was positively sort of impacting the dynamics of our family. This was not meant to be a time for me to go sit in my man cave and do nothing for a whole day. This wasn't the excuse to do that. So I think that was a big part of it, is kind of recognizing that what is the purpose of this? The purpose of this is, one, I think, to let God back in, to create space for God to get back in. But I think what also comes out of that is that you're also creating space to reconnect with your family, to reconnect with people around you, to do, I think, the things that God intended for us to do always.
It's very easy to bash technology and reject it. But one of the things one of the quotes I love from the book was Andy Crouch said, technology can only be very good if we use it for a good purpose, basically, which is kind of what you touched on. Have you seen other ways beyond what you've already shared of good purposes that you've discovered that maybe you didn't before?
Yeah, I think for me, I would use it very selfishly, like filling a void, or instead of dealing with an argument with Gerald, I'll look for validation from a photo that I posted, or rather than seeking human interaction. But for the good, I've listened to podcasts that have encouraged me. I've heard recommendations for books, or one of my friends on Instagram could paint, and I'm like, can you teach me? And she said, sure, when? And so I was like, well, let's make this a community event. So I organized a night for that. So it was just cool to see how it's like just seeing it through a different lens, and not like a consumerism, but of like, oh, this is a tool to be used, and ideas to share, and beauty to be shown. And if you're following things that aren't that, then you can easily get rid of them. We have the power to do that. God gives us that power. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me to recognize that technology is a tool. I mean, inherently it's neither good nor bad. It kind of comes down to the way in which we choose to use it. And I think maybe for a lot of us, but I know for me, for a large part of my life in the last few years, I think I let technology control me. And so I kind of had to shed some of that and kind of take control over technology in a sense, and allow it to do my bidding as opposed to me kind of living around it.
So a big focus in our hard talk this morning is just the way that technology can be a distraction, how it can be an interruption, and how it really fights against, again, a lot of these natural rhythms that God has designed us for. And when I think about, what that means to us physically and spiritually, the commandment comes to mind of love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, right? And I think technology attacks all of those things in various ways if we misuse it. Have you found any particular aspect of this that's really been beneficial in terms of those things, heart, mind, spirit, the physical, the emotional, or is it the full package? I mean, there's that wholeness, right? Is there one certain area that you feel has been most rejuvenated by this approach?
Question.
Yeah. I think my heart, possibly, and just in comparison, they say comparison is the thief of joy. I don't know who they are. But
I'll look it up online.
yeah, there you go. And I think I would compare, you can compare using a paper magazine or anything, but once I cut off a lot of the things I was following, or even just being on Facebook, or not, like, I used to feel like I would miss out on an event if I wasn't on Facebook, but actually it's allowed me to be present for the events that I'm at, and to really just love people better. Like, it's so tempting for me to pull out my phone at any given time if someone else has their phone out, and I have to fight that so hard. Because we were talking earlier how we really want to be present with people. I think that's a gift to give people, and as a culture, we're not very good at giving. And so to be kind of people who are committed to saying, you know what, we're going to really try not to pull out our phone and not be the first, at least, to do it. And yeah, to respect others that way and to love them. And hopefully our hearts can grow, and to love God through that by loving others, and to just, yeah, listen to God and hear him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say it's probably been all of that. I mean, it starts with the heart for sure, because it's created space in my own heart to hear from God, and to begin to be able to say, okay, God, what's going on around me, and how do you want me to join you in what you're doing? And I think to be able to have that space to ask that question is huge. On the other side, I think, from mind and strength, and some of those things kind of come out of that, but it's given me a chance to read other things that I wouldn't normally read, and even things that are connected to God, that allow me to sort of flourish in terms of understanding more of who God is, and knowing how to take that and then be able to talk to other people about it. So, I've had chances and opportunities in the last few weeks even to talk to people at work about faith, to give them books that I've read in the past that I think would be really encouraging to them and beneficial to them. And I have a deep sense, I think, that a lot of those opportunities come out of the fact that we've created space for God to speak to us and to make known the needs that are around me at work, and to be able to in turn respond and love people back. So I think starting with the heart, and then out of that, seeing God fill in the pieces and give us opportunities to be involved in people's lives has been a cool privilege and a blessing for us.
And I think one other thing is that we were driving down towards Niagara, and we had kind of a scary incident, and it just made me especially realize that, like, I only have so many hours on this earth, and I don't know how many, and I don't really want to spend them scrolling, looking at pictures. I want to spend them with my family and my friends, and everyone gets the same amount of time in a day. It's just, what are you going to do with them? And yeah, it really kind of woke me up to say, like, hey, like, these are your gifts right in front of you, and enjoy them. And not to say I don't get mad at them, my children, but I appreciate them so much more in the time that I have. So. And my husband.
Yeah. And the more we talk, we're getting really better at
finishing each other's sentences. Yeah.
Did you plan that in advance?
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. I think it was really cool and really insightful. And anytime you guys want to come over and watch Netflix, you're totally welcome. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Next season of The Crown is coming.
Vikings.
I hope you found Gerald and Julia's experience insightful, but I hope you also heard from them that this wasn't something that happened overnight. It took a lot of time, a lot of patience. It's been a bit of a journey. So we thought it might also be helpful for us to hear from some other people who maybe are a lot like most of us, who are just kind of wading into this the first time or feeling our way through this. So we've invited the Shea family from Mayfield West to come join us. So I'm here with Michael, with Mara, with Larissa, and with Ingi. And we asked them to participate in a little experiment with us and just to try some of these tech-wise practices. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this. Maybe first, could you share a little bit about what maybe your technology patterns were before this? Were you ever sensing that, technology can be a little interruptive or distracting to your family?
Yeah, there's situations where we come home from work, and as kind of things started to change as we got more data in the house, more it became more available to us. I find that I was on the cell phone more and more, and there is a too that we just end up looking at it when we come home from work, and even sometimes during supper.
So is that sort of, replacing times when you would typically interact and dialogue with each other as a family?
Absolutely. Yes. Our pattern is, I think we're controlled somewhat with television. And when we are more available, then we might turn on the television, for example, or put on a DVD. But the using social media is just, it's a pattern throughout the day that we use for everything, looking up a recipe or finding out who is that actor in a movie. It becomes a disruption in between a conversation.
So we asked you guys to maybe try something that would change that pattern a little bit. I know we didn't give you a ton of guidance. We just sent you a few kind of basic principles, some of the things that we're talking about in this series. And we asked you just to try whatever you could. So could you tell us a little bit about what things did you try out? How did that go?
We asked Ingy to come home and leave his cell phone on the kitchen counter, and that didn't work out so well. I think it didn't work out as well because I was not the example for him. With Michael's really good at putting the cell phone down, that pattern, and he was the one that was trying to get us.
I was actually probably one of the first ones in our household to actually, when I come in and I realize what was going on with the cell phone, I'd turn it off, and there's a little shelf going towards our basement. So I'd open the door and just put it there.
Right.
And then that's the end of that.
And so was that kind of put on the shelf for a certain period of time, or how did you kind of measure that?
Yeah, maybe for at least till we finish talking about things.
Right.
And then you'll go, oh, well, maybe I'll go check my cell phone and see if there's a call. But yeah, I think that was a good idea. Well, Larissa put that shelf there for a reason, and I don't know if that was the reason, but
one of the reasons.
One of the reasons, but it really works out well.
Well, that's great. That's two things that the author Andy Crouch in this book has talked about is finding the time and the space for technology. So you've created a space to put it aside, and also giving yourself time to be apart from it. So that's great that you've kind of taken that measure. So sounds like you're trying to prioritize conversation, prioritize time together before heading to that distraction, right?
Yeah.
So maybe could you shed a little light? How hard has it been? Are you finding it as difficult as you thought it would be to have the discipline to do that?
We should start with our son.
Oh, Ingy's been very quiet. Let's hear from Ingy.
Well, yeah, for me, like putting away like my video games and my PS4, it's just as hard as I thought it would be. I mean, like in the past, sometimes when like it was interfering with like my school life and schoolwork, I decided to like put it away for a bit. I didn't like really measure how long, but I like knew I needed to take a break because like it was really affecting how I was doing in school. And like it's happened like many times before where like you would take it away, or like I would not be able to go on it, and it's been like very hard, but also like good for like your willpower.
And you mentioned just the difficulty in being the example. What's been the challenge for you in doing that?
I'm notorious when it comes to my phone. We had one really special evening where everything came together. We were reading the book that Pastor Andrew asked us. I'm sorry, what's it called again?
The TechWise Family.
The TechWise Family. We were reading that, and that evening, just everything came together. Everything seemed to disappear. There was no phone calls. We quite easily put the phones away. We were together for an hour, reading the book and trying to listen to the ideas that we could use to apply to our lives. And
well, it was also important that we sat in the dining room too.
yes,
and
the location.
Turned
Right.
off the TV,
Yeah.
which is
So again, there's that time and space
Yes.
aspect to this.
Yes, we were not in a room with a television.
Yeah.
And we were not in a room with our cell phones. There
Right.
was no other digital in the room we were in the dining room. and we did have a good family discussion, and we listened to each other. And that's the point where it got a little bit stressful and difficult and a bit painful. My husband, Michael, was describing how he felt when I use my phone, when I'm distracted by my phone, when he is speaking to me, when we're trying to engage in conversation. And it became really painful to hear him say that he was hurt, that he was hurt by my distraction and my attention to my phone, social media, when he was trying to discuss, and, and that became very painful and emotional.
I would sometimes say, "Are you listening? Are you listening?" Because I can't tell if she's listening to me or not.
Yeah.
And that's a complaint with a lot of people that when their cell phones are.
Yeah, my wife and I have had that discussion too, and so it's appropriate. This is called hard talks, right? This is a hard talk I think a lot of us have to have.
It stayed with me. It hurt me because I felt like he was really hurt by it and disrespected and dishonored. And I never really thought about it that way. I thought as a woman, we can, we're notorious for what people think is multitasking, and I'm not quite sure if that's correct. But it's really impossible to pay attention to a loved one and be on social media.
Yeah, we like to think we can do it, but the reality is not. So that's some of the challenges, and that resonates with me. Like I said, we've had those discussions in our family too, and they're hard when you hear somebody say, "Oh man, I feel like you're not listening to me." But what about the positive? Have you discovered any positive come out of these experiences? Sounds like the tough talk was still good in a way, though.
That was positive. Yeah, when we talked about.
So out of that conversation first week, I not only understood how much I hurt Michael, but how much time I chose to, that I can't get back, the time that I didn't spend with Ingy because I was distracted with my social media stuff and he was gaming.
Well, I just found that day when we had everything put away around the table, I felt there was more like a connection,
right?
That's a positive.
Yeah.
Right? When everything's turned off and we were conversing, or all of us were talking.
Yeah, so it did have an effect also on not just rest, but your family dynamic too.
Yes.
Relationally, it was impactful. Awesome. Well, that's great. I think this conversation is really valuable because a lot of us are in this boat where we're not sure how to even talk about it together as a family, but we know we need to, and I think you guys have demonstrated that. So thank you very much for taking the time and having this conversation. So.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Mara.
Thank you.
Well, after listening to those experiences, I hope you're hearing how challenging this can be to live this tech-wise life. Even Andy Crouch himself writes that it's going to take wisdom and courage. But in addition to that, I hope you're also seeing the reward for that commitment. And I want you to be encouraged towards living that rich, meaningful pattern of life that God has given us and what it means to submit ourselves to His will in both mind, body, and soul, and what happens when we put those distractions aside. So I want to encourage you guys to something right now, and I want you to maybe try something right away this week. It doesn't have to be intimidating. You don't have to turn your world right upside down, but I want you to try a little experiment of your own, something like the Shea family had done. I want you to begin investigating what it would mean for your family or for you to live out the patterns and the rhythms God designed for us, to put technology in its place, to test out and see if the things we've read in Scripture and the experiences we've talked about today will be true for you. Gerald and Julia shared that you don't have to do everything right away. Just take it one step and then the next step. So I want you to choose just one thing this week. Pick one time in your day, one space in your home, and make that adjustment to remove the distraction and actually commune with God and to interact with the people in your life, to build those relationships. Try tapping into your creativity instead of just consuming. Exercise a little effort instead of choosing leisure and ease. Sacrifice some of the time you spend with technology for real Sabbath rest. Just choose one thing, do that one thing that's really going to feed your soul, rest your mind, your body, your spirit, and let us know how it goes.